Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Grebner Show. This is Scott Kerker, along with Metamore head coach Jared Grebner. Coach, week 2 home opener, senior night. Boy, there was a lot of things going on at Metamore last Friday night. Good night for Metamore football, though.
Yeah, we had great weather. Couldn't ask for anything better on a week 2 night. Sometimes, those can be scorchers, but that was a beautiful night. Nice little breeze. Great fans, great support as always in the community. Senior night, and off those, seniors are after not really sending them off, starting their senior year off correctly with the win.
Yep, it was a great night. LaSalle Proof came to town, and they're always a gritty, hard-nosed football team, and no matter how good you are, they just need to stay in the game because of how gritty they are.
Yeah, they're gritty, like you said. They're a physical bunch. Kind of reflect Coach Medina. He's got his son who's a 3-year starter. He's a physical guy himself. And, they have just a group that just is tenacious. They keep coming after you, and they keep coming after you. And I thought we, held up to their early surge in the first half and was able to then, get a few things going in there in the second half.
You play what I kind of refer to as kind of the rope-a-dope. You kind of feel them out for a half, and then you guys have been making some just phenomenal adjustments at halftime, and you came out second half and played well. But getting back to that first half, they were able to do some things, and you got to give them a little bit of credit. They did some things defensively, took away Jadon, and he probably wasn't 100%, but still you were expecting him to have a big night. He had a big night last year up there. Mm-hmm. They get a lot of those kids back. And I thought they played as good a defense as you can possibly play against Metamore.
They did some doing some nice wrinkles to take some things away from us, whether it was with our running back, with our quarterback run game, things on the perimeter. And so, they had a nice scheme there in the first half. Offensive coaches made some great adjustments, with Coach Solinsky, Coach Otto, Coach Simmons, Coach Urban, and those guys. They always put together a nice game plan, made some nice adjustments on the offensive side. And, those guys, you don't expect anything less than that. And the good thing is, like you said, with those adjustments, well, the kids have to be able to pick up on it as well. And so they made those slight adjustments. It wasn't anything, earth-shattering or anything like that, or, throwing the whole game plan out. It was just a couple wrinkles here and there that the kids could pick up on that could help them out and use our skill sets to the best of our abilities.
I thought, though, that also you, along with Coach Herring, I thought defensively you guys made some outstanding adjustments. I believe they only had 2 first downs that second half.
Actually, one on a little crossing pattern on a waggle. They had one there.
That was early.
Yeah, and other than that, they weren't able to get one. We were able to kind of ratchet up the pressure a little bit on the quarterback, get him to make some mistakes. But, that quarterback they have is going to be a good quarterback. He's only a freshman. He doesn't look like a freshman, doesn't really play like it. I'm sure he would like a couple of those throws back, but he put those guys in a position to have some success. For us defensively, it wasn't, to be honest with you, it wasn't a whole lot of adjustments. It was more reminders of just some things, that we just had to shore up and just make sure we concentrated on a little bit more, whether it was our keys or whether it was something formationally by them. And so it wasn't really a whole lot of adjustments. It was just things that we needed to clean up.
We'll talk a little bit first about the defense, and I thought Cam Nickel had just an outstanding game. I think he only had 1 sack, but it seemed like he was in the backfield harassing their quarterback all night long. Mm-hmm. I thought Sam Barbarinas also had a nice night for you guys. And then Kevin Barker, Mr. Consistency, he did a really nice job up front. He's going to be tested this coming week. We'll get to that later, but I thought he had another outstanding. I thought there was a number of guys.
Shake had a great game.
Yeah.
I thought Cam, you started off with him. He had 9 tackles, a couple pressures, a sack. and even the ones he got pressures on and made the quarterback step up in the pocket, and had guys like Caleb Morrison that could then feast on him was he was stepping up and trying to escape the pocket. And so I thought our pursuit and our energy was relentless, and especially in that second half. It just seemed like we were swarming to the ball a little bit more, and you always love to see that. Those efforts, one thing that it doesn't take any talent at all to make sure you're giving it all, and those kids laid it all out there. You mentioned Kevin; he does a great job inside, whether he's getting double teamed or not. You mentioned Shea Steele. I thought he got underneath some routes really good. He had an interception to kind of turn the tide and get us some momentum going. He had some great open field tackles as well. Sam Barbarina just finds a way to always be slippery. He's a guy that just plays with some good levers, and you look at him and he's kind of long, he's lanky, but he just finds a way to get in creases and make plays. And sometimes when players have intangibles like that, you just let their athleticism take over.
Yeah, he was awfully good. I thought in the first half too, Will Mishra had a nice batted ball.
Yes, he did on the screenplay there.
And they had some room out there if they were able to complete that pass. He did a nice job. But I thought the fact that you're front four, and then sometimes you bring it back or whatever, and you were getting pressure. You had 2 interceptions. I thought both interceptions were a result of the pressure that those guys gave them.
And Coach Herring would always say the best coverage is the sack. That's your secondary's best friend. When they get all the time in the world, they're going to get open at some point. So when those guys up front can get pressure, and especially if you don't have to blitz or send somebody, it makes it that much easier on those guys in the defensive backfield. They're always very appreciative when they can rush those throws.
Offensively, I thought your team, they struggled a little bit in the first half, just kind of getting going. Again, though, you made some really nice adjustments. Came out that second half. You held them. They got the opening kickoff in the second half. You held them, and then you got the ball back. Really good field position, I believe, at about the 47 or 48-yard line, and you drove down and scored, took a 1-point lead. But I thought that was a really nice drive. It was 5, 6, 7 yards. You just kept, gradually working your way down. It wasn't one big play. You just kind of gradually went down, kind of imposed your will a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought Evan Kyle, and we'll talk about him later on, but I thought he had just an outstanding game for you.
Yeah, he did. And, like we said before, he's the senior captain. We don't expect anything less than him. He kind of picked up some slack in the running game. I knew Jadon went out. Unfortunately, he had an electric run that was kind of taken off the board early. You wish you could have that one back. But Evan, as always, he shares the load. He'll carry his share and do whatever is expected of him. And him and Steven during that one drive you're talking about, they were able to keep going 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, and those guys up front made some good adjustments. That line was making holes and allowing us to go 5 yards in kind of a cloud of dust and just be consistent. And the one thing that those guys did well and that we improved on was this time we got inside the 5 twice on 2 of our touchdowns, and we scored both times where, the previous week for Sterling, we get inside the 5 twice and we don't score. And so, when you can see steps like that being taken and just know how much urgency we have to play with once we get down near the goal line, because those points are so valuable. To see us take that step was always nice.
Yeah, that was a very encouraging sign. Then the thing that I was really impressed with is you take the 1-point lead, 15 to 14, and you kick off, you hold them, they get another 3 and out. They kick you guys. You get I think an offsides in your first play, so that moves it back to the 23 or 24-yard line. And on the first play, really good blocking up front. Evan Kyle goes off your left side. And I don't even know if he really even had a break tackle. He just had to move over, and then it was off to the races, and nobody's going to catch it.
No, Evan, he's fast. He's one of the faster guys on our team. He just puts a foot in the ground and goes. And, credit the offensive line there. He basically went untouched. And like you said, once he caught the corner, it was smooth sailing from there. And, Tommy hit the extra point, and that gave us, an 8-point lead. And when you got that 8-point lead, feeling pretty good. You got that cushion, especially the way the defense was playing. And so from there, it was just a matter of, hey, can we hold on? Can we continue to run out the clock and gain yards as we go?
Really, your defense only gave up one touchdown because they returned a kickoff for a touchdown. And just kind of a quirky little thing where the guys kind of got out of their lanes a little bit, he broke a tackle, and then he had some speed, and he was able to score. But I thought the adjustment you made on your kickoff, you still kicked it pretty deep. It was high, but Tommy's gotten to be so good at that. Kicks it kind of into an area where they have to wait for the ball. I don't think they ever returned the ball out to the 30-yard line. You kept them inside the 30 the rest of the night.
For the rest of the night. That's one thing that Tommy's done such a good job of. His leg strength has improved. You saw that in the early game. He was putting them kind of in the coffin corner there. And then he's able to, kind of do those spot mortar kicks for us, down to about the 25, 30-yard line. And he's putting a lot of time in. He's actually pulling double duty, playing soccer, and he's doing football. And so he's putting the time in, and he's making it worthwhile. And we're fortunate to have him as a weapon for us.
Yeah, he's been awfully good for you.
I will say this about Tommy also. He normally isn't our punter. And, Jaden Lambert wasn't able to go, so our backup was Petrie. And he had a leg cramp and couldn't come back in. And Tommy, steps up to the task and right off the bat and I can do it. And so we just want a one-step punt and get it out of there. And he stepped up and he got a nice punt and backed them up a little bit. And so
was it a 44-yard punt?
I mean, I'm not sure exactly what it was. I was just glad it was out of there with giving us good field position for the defensive side. But hats off to him for stepping up in a big moment. And those are little things that a lot of people don't notice, but we appreciate Tommy stepping up to the challenge.
I thought the first key to that whole situation was him catching the snap.
Yeah, as always, the first thing, making sure we get the snap back there, and then making sure we catch it, and then make sure we block up front.
And he did a nice job. He got it off quick. It was a one step and a boom, and it was a pretty solid kick. And it was fine. And it looked like he'd been doing it all year long.
And he practices it. It's not like it was the first time he's ever done it, but he does a good job for us.
Yep, that was a big play. You're right. That was a big play in that game. The other thing I kind of want to touch on too is I think your line is starting to kind of come together. I thought they did some nice things. That was a much better defensive line than we saw week one, I thought. And I thought your guys the other night, they kind of had to figure out what was going on, but I thought they did pretty good when the game was on the line.
And sometimes that's the best time to learn about the players is, hey, when the game's close, you need to play, who can we rely on, who can we run behind, who can we give the ball to, and, that offensive line is starting to come together like we talked about at the beginning of the year. They're a young line.
Yeah, they're very young, and they're getting better.
And they are, and credit to Coach Otto, and same thing with even the tight ends and stuff. But, they're pretty much glorified linemen for it, and Coach Urban works with those guys, and those guys keep bringing them along every single day and keep coaching them and keep pushing them so they can all reach their potential. And it's fun to watch them all grow together.
You're right. They've started to really come. It's nice to be 2-0, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Being 2-0, it's a good feeling. We know that there's still work to do. You mentioned that we'll talk about it later, but we got the Mid-Atlantic Conference coming up. We got some big games. Big game right here, week 3, right off the bat. But it's nice to be 2-0 going into it. But we got some tough challenges ahead.
And that's kind of how you want it to be.
Yeah. Keep growing, keep learning, and then just keep taking it day by day. and then game by game.
Why don't we take a break? When we come back, we'll talk about the player of the game, and we'll talk about your upcoming game and maybe the rest of the Mid-Atlantic Conference.
Yep.
Central Illinois, you asked for it and we listened. Germantown Grill is growing to meet customer demand, adding more dining space and a private gaming area featuring games powered by Gold Rush, the gold standard in video gaming. And Germantown Grill still has all the food and spirits that keep our customers coming back. Stop by to check out our daily specials. The game's on at Germantown Grill, where Central Illinois loves to eat. Open 7 days a week, just off Route 116.
Welcome back to the Grebner Show. First off, before we get too far, I want to thank Jake and Sarah Atkins again for allowing us to do the show from here at the Germantown Grill. It's fantastic.
We appreciate everything that they always do for us.
And we talked a little bit before we went on air about who the player of the game was, and we kind of decided on Evan Kyle, 150 yards rushing when you needed a big game out of it, and he came through and had a really nice game for you, and you needed it, and he ran hard. And when the time came up that there was a chance for him to break a tackle, not even break a tackle, but find a nice big hole, he found it and went 70-plus yards for a touchdown.
Yep. When you can get those types of plays, it's always nice. Evan has knack for finding those seams. He's not really going to like juke anybody inside the lines, but he has kind of a little sidestep and a little bend to him that he just has a knack for finding those creases. So he knocked that one 70-yard touchdown off, and then he had one real nice run. I believe it was on the drive that kind of clinched it for us, where he took it around the right-hand side, down by our sideline, just barely stepped out of bounds as he was trying to cut it back in. But that was a huge, I think that might have been on a third down also. And,
It was about a 3rd and 7, wasn't
yeah, and he took it for like 17 yards around the edge and just kind of felt some creases and got some nice blocks on the perimeter there. And I thought that was another huge play. And that one doesn't really show up in the stat book. I mean, it's another nice long run for him. It wasn't a touchdown or anything like that, but that's a much needed third down conversion, and a crucial part of the game, and we were able to keep the ball and eventually run the clock out.
Yeah, that was really good. He's bigger than, when you look down from the stands, you look at him, he looks like a little running back. But you get up next to Jimmy, or get next to Evan Kyle, he's got a little bit of size to him.
Yeah, you can call him Jimmy. I think his mom even called him Jimmy on the senior night videos and stuff like that. But Evan, also known as Jimmy, he's a hard worker. He's put in a lot of time in the weight room. You can see that just in his physique. You can tell he works hard on running as well. And so, like we mentioned earlier, he's got some giddy up to him. Yeah. And so it's nice to see all that hard work pay off for somebody like him.
The other thing we want to talk about is you got an upcoming game. It's probably the one game, regardless of who's good, who's bad, or how things are going, but you always, in Metamora, you circle Washington. If you're in Washington, you circle Metamora. And this is a rivalry game. This is as heated a rival as there is in the area in every sport. And you have them week 3. They're coming in at 0-2 at their play. You're 2-0. They've probably played arguably the best non-con schedule in the conference. But regardless, it's a big game for Metamora.
The thing is, Washington, I know they're 0-2, but they've played some pretty salty competition, and we're not naive to that fact. They played a tough Canelan team. They played a tough Kankakee team, and so they're tested. That's for sure. So they know what it's like to go up against some good competition. So we're going to go over there with the proper mindset that we have to play well in order to beat them. Let the best team win. But, it's a great way to open up the conference season. We always said that, hey, we got to start fast and finish strong to this season, because we open up with some doozies, in the conference. And, Washington's the next obstacle in the way. and if we want to reach our some of our goals that we have, we know that we have to get off on the right foot. But Coach Stevens is, as always, is going to have those guys ready. Ever since he's been there, their defense has just been top notch. They do a great job of boxing you in and just keeping everything contained. And they're a big physical bunch. They'll be the biggest group that we go against. Up to this point, for sure. And they have some good athletes on the perimeter. They're defensively, they have guys that will fly around. They have some experience there, and so it's not a team that could ever be taken lightly, regardless of record. You can just throw those out right now. They don't mean much right now. Basically, it's 0-0. We're both going into this Friday with that mindset. That way, for the conference, it's that game for that Friday night, because that's all we're worried about, and I'm sure that's all they're worried about as well.
The other nice thing is, this year when you go over there and you go to shake, their head coach's hand, it won't be, you have a guy about your size.
Right. Coach Crouch, I'm not like getting neck cramp looking up at him. I mean, everybody's taller than I am, but he was especially taller. Of course, Coach Stevens, he's still taller than I am, but just not a foot taller. Coach Crouch is always a physically imposing guy. A real nice guy, though. Real great coach. Coach Stevens has taken over. He does a good job with him.
Another nice guy.
Brought in a great offensive coordinator with Coach Barth from Eureka College, and he's doing good things with them. And so it's going to be a tough challenge. They still have a great coaching staff. Not a whole lot has changed over there. We expect them to be well coached as always, to always play hard, and to get after it and to give it a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure. Washington, like you said, they're doing 0-2. They're 0-2, but for some whatever reason, I think they're going to come out and play like they're 2-0 on Friday night against us.
They could be coming out and knowing that, hey, we played some really good competition. So we know that we're ready for this. Tonight we come out, all frothy mouth and everything, ready to go, because they're itching for that first win
at their place.
At their place, in front of their home crowd. I'm sure they want to get Coach Stevens his first official win as the head coach, and so especially they're probably thinking, hey, first win for Coach Stevens against Metamora. What better way to start for him in the Mid-Atlantic Conference? But it's up to us to be ready for that challenge, be up to that task, and it's going to be a good game on Friday night.
Yeah, I expect a barn burner. Mm-hmm. When you look at the rest of the Mid-Atlantic Conference, we've done pretty well in the non-con season, the first part of the season. Any surprises?
And it's kind of always hard to tell, because you don't know what the others have coming back. As far as the other non-con, I don't know what Muhammad Seymour, when you looked at that score with Morton, and it was a high-scoring game. I don't know if I was expecting a high-scoring game like that. And I know it was kind of a funny game to begin with, because it was
storm delay.
They had the storm delay, and I think they were still, we're coming home from Sterling, you're checking scores and stuff, and it's about 11:15, 11:30 at night, we're on the bus traveling, and they're still in the third quarter.
They just didn't update.
Yeah, and you're like, what? They're still in the third quarter. And so there's always factors that play a role in the stuff. Sometimes there might be an injury at the beginning of the year and a kid doesn't play. So sometimes you just don't quite know. Rochelle does have a lot of people coming back. That is a good group that Coach has coming back for them. But, East Peoria got off to a good start, playing the Springfield schools
new coach.
With the new coach, kind of getting some enthusiasm into that program. And so they'll be riding high as they go along. Dunlap, a lot of people expected them to start 2-0, which they've done. And so, we'd have to see how things play out. Things change week to week. based on maybe some personnel injuries, and so who can step up? How just things change. Sometimes people, even us, like the past couple of years, we figured out towards the end of the year, a kid fits here defensively a little bit better, or offensively here a little bit better, and they help us out there. And so the dynamics of things can change throughout the season. And
From game to game.
from week to week, from game to game. And so as those dynamics change, teams can change as well, and everybody always makes adjustments. And so it's just going to be fun watching how the Mid-Illini plays out this year.
The two teams that kind of stick out to me, and they're both 0-2, Morton and Washington. And I feel like both of those teams will figure it out. They're going to figure it out. I hope it's not in the next 2 weeks. But I do think that both those teams are going to figure out what it's going to take to win. I think Pekin's a decent team. They gave Belleville East a pretty good run. They beat Rolling Meadows. And you mentioned, Dunlap. A lot of people are picking them to be a big factor in the Mid-Illini Conference. They're 2-0. They played Galesburg and they played Rock Island. They beat them both. Rock Island scored some points on them. So, you got to take that into a little bit of a factor too. But they could be a very good team offensively.
And that's one thing about it. I'm not quite for sure on some of the teams. I mean, I know the scores and kind of look at them, but it's one good thing is we've kind of had tunnel vision. As far as like game tapes and stuff like that, we got Washington this week, and that's all that we're focused on. Like, there's no luxury in the Mid-Illini of trying to look weeks ahead, because if you do that, somebody's gonna, kind of bite you. They will. They're just gonna bite you, and so we just gotta keep the blinders on, stay focused for the next obstacle in front of us. For this week, it's Washington. It's a big obstacle. They've had great success the past couple of years. Made a big run into the semifinals last year and lost to a good East St. Louis team.
And they gave them everything they wanted.
And so, going into last year, they were 1-1 for this game. They lost the Canelan game. I think they lost that one 14-7. I remember.
I think it was 6-3 or was it 3-3 or something?
No, 6-3. They ran a kickoff back.
Right.
And Washington also scored on the field goal. So they, their defense, like we talked about earlier, it's always salty. And they're going to hold people to very few scores. And so very similar to last year. Last year they were 1-1. This year they just happened to be 0-2. But they're poised to do some damage, and we have to be up to that challenge.
Well, Coach, probably not real hard to get the kids up for Washington week, is it?
You don't have to say much. If you have to get up for this game, they might want to check the pool.
Yeah. But it is fun.
Yeah,
regardless, it is fun. I'm sure a lot of people are going to get nothing done at work on Friday. And the kids aren't going to learn a whole lot on Friday.
Sometimes they have some other things on their mind.
Yeah. And that's okay. And but Coach, good luck. We'll see you Friday night.
I appreciate it.